Hey guys, it's Najam and this is the Bluboo S8. The Bluboo S8 is a cheap Android smartphone that replicates the Samsung Galaxy S8, hence the name. In this video, I'll be reviewing the Bluboo S8 and talking about it as a standalone device. It isn't a good thing if the device can't perform well on its own, aside from copying the Galaxy S8. As you can see, it looks like the Samsung Galaxy S8 for the most part. To an average user and everyone around you, it will. That is until you look at the back and see that ugly logo. I think it would have been better if Bluboo made the logo stand out a bit less. On the front it has a 5.7-inch display. Above the display you have a 5 megapixel front facing camera, an ambient light sensor, earpiece and a notification LED. On the right side you only have the power button. The volume rocker is on the left side and I wish both were on the right side together. Also the buttons are a little mushy. On the bottom you have a USB Type-C for charging, a microphone and a mono speaker. On the top you have a SIM card tray which houses the 2 SIM card slots and the micro SD card slot. This phone is dual SIM. On the back you have dual cameras, one being 13 megapixels but shows up as a 16 megapixel in the software and the other only a 3 megapixel shooter. You also have a dual tone LED flash and a fingerprint reader for unlocking your phone. Now this phone doesn't have a 3.5mm headphone jack, so it comes with an adapter from USB Type-C to 3.5mm in the box. The fingerprint reader isn't the best. I think the only problem is that it doesn't have enough surface area to cover a whole finger, so it fails sometimes to authenticate, but overall it works and it's nice to have. The build quality is a miss and hit. The device feels solid and is a bit heavy. The back is actually made out of plastic, not glass, and the construction isn't perfect. There are gaps between the sides, the back and the front which dust gets caught in, and you can feel it, but it's just something to note and something that could have been improved. Okay, now let's go over the specs. This phone has 3GB of RAM, 32GB of built-in storage, 13 megapixel plus 3 megapixel rear-facing cameras along with a 5 megapixel front-facing camera, Bluetooth 4, Wi-Fi ABGN, there's no AC. It supports up to 256GB microSD cards. It has a 720p display and is running Android 7 Nougat. CPU wise, this phone has a MediaTek MTK6750T octa-core processor, which was released back in 2016 and consists of 2 clusters, each cluster containing 4 cores. All the cores are ARM Cortex A53. The first cluster has 4 high-performance cores clocked at 1.5 GHz for the heavy tasks, and the second cluster has 4 low-powered cores clocked at only 1 GHz for lower power consumption. The CPU is a great performer, and the Android experience is nice. It's quick and smooth, but it does stutter here and there. Now, that being said, still is far better than any other Android device I've used in the past. Only Blackberry 10 on the Blackberry Passport is the smoothest and the lagless OS I've ever had. Now, as far as the GPU goes, you have a Mali T860MP2 GPU clocked at 650 MHz, and this is a nice GPU and will play most games on the Android market, and also having a 720p display helps with the FPS. Now in the UK I did get a 4G signal from my provider and the call quality is really nice. In the US however I've heard a different story, so just make sure your provider covers your area. Now the phone has a 5.7-inch IPS LCD display. Just like Samsung went from the traditional 16:9 aspect ratio to 18:9 on the Galaxy S8, the Bluboo S8 also has an aspect ratio of 18:9. Now if you simplify that you get 2:1, which is essentially 2 squares. The display has a resolution of 1440 by 720, so basically it's a 720p display just with more resolution on the top making it taller. Unfortunately the display doesn't curve around the edges like in the marketing. The glass covering the display however does and feels very smooth. The 4 corners of the display are also rounded off just like the Galaxy S8, which is a nice touch, and the viewing angles are actually quite good. And outdoors, on full brightness the phone is usable. The colors of the display could have been better, but they're not bad. I find the contrast a little lacking, but given the price it's debatable. The one thing that bugs me about this display is the fact that it keeps adjusting the gamma. Now those are the black levels for those who don't know what I'm on about. When watching YouTube videos, I noticed that the display keeps adjusting the black levels and it's a bit annoying. This occurs everywhere in the system, and so far I haven't been able to find a way to turn it off. And because of this, videos don't really look right. Another thing I don't like about the display is the fact that it's over sharpened. Watching YouTube videos at 720p, that's the max by the way, they look way over sharpened and unnatural. Well, on the positive side, the display does look nice and is almost bezel-less, which does give a nice feeling. Comparing to the Galaxy S8 on the bottom and the top, the bezels are much bigger on the Bluboo, and the display panel doesn't curve from the left and the right sides, leaving very small bezels. Okay, let's talk about the software, because if the software isn't good, then what's really the point? The Bluboo S8 is running Android 7 Nougat. I did get a couple of updates when I got the phone out of the box, but it's still Android 7, and I'm guessing those were security patches. The OS on this phone is locked down a little bit, and you can't change the UI to your liking, so goodbye Nova Launcher. All the apps you install are on the desktop, and it comes with a whole lot of bloatware, most of which you can't really delete unfortunately, so I've added all of that to the freezer. Now the freezer is basically a folder that stops the applications from everything. If you put an application in the freezer, it kind of disappears like as if you've never installed it. And this is quite nice actually. Now you may not be able to change launchers, but the Bluboo S8 launcher has some nice customizations. First off, a few things in the developer options you might want to enable and check out. Secondly, if you zoom out with 2 fingers on the home screen, you get access to transitions and wallpapers. There is a theme app that allows you to change the feel of the UI a little bit. And get this, in the beginning there was no app drawer, but I found it under the widgets menu for some weird reason. A different reviewer on YouTube mentioned that you can't zoom in on videos in YouTube to fill the whole screen. Well, actually you can, just zoom in. It only works however on 16:9 videos and not 4:3, and that's something just to clarify. One thing I like about this phone is that it allows you to hide the Android navigation buttons. Hiding these buttons gives you much more space on the screen, and it changes how the phone feels overall. The problem is when you hide the buttons, you can't really use them unless you bring them back up. So really I just didn't bother hiding them. But I really liked the tall feeling it gave when using the device. So I got this application called Navigation Gestures. The app allows you to hide the navigation bar at the bottom, giving you more space to work with in applications that benefit from it, and it replaces it with this little pill. Now the pill can be customized, you can change the size, you can change the positioning to your liking, and you can also add different gestures to it. For example, I'm using the default settings, which means if I press the pill, it will take me to the home screen just like the home button. If I push the pill to the left, it will go back, and if I push the pill to the right, it will open the apps running in the background. Oh, by the way, this phone also does split screen, but I didn't really get into that because it's not really good when you put up the keyboard, you know what I'm saying, but alright. Since the display is 18:9, a little taller than 16:9, some applications don't really fit it perfectly. You get black bars on the top and the bottom of apps. Well, you can actually change that, luckily. In the settings menu, look for full screen mode and enable which app you want to use the whole screen with. Just so you know, some apps don't really work really well with full screen mode, and you should disable it for those apps. Now the speaker on the Bluboo S8 is tinny and sounds like it's been pushed beyond its limitations. Now it's okay for notifications though, so at least that's good. How's it going guys? Welcome back to another video. So in this video I'm going to be unboxing the Bluboo S8, which is a smartphone from a Chinese manufacturer that's ripped off of the original Samsung Galaxy S8. So I got this phone because I needed it actually, and I'm going to do an unboxing in this video of it. My review will be coming up, so make sure you check that out on this channel. The reason I'm doing this video is the cameras on the Bluboo S8 are not the greatest. Indoors they suck really bad, but sometimes you can actually get away with it. Outdoors the rear camera is actually fine. There's just one thing though which I can't get straight. I just can't switch to the second camera that they have on the back. Now there is no option in the software, and it makes you wonder if it's actually a camera or just a sensor that helps the phone focus, because the focusing is not bad on this phone. It's a bit slow, but it actually has good accuracy. Okay, now before I conclude, let me just go over the bad things. Number 1, it doesn't have a headphone jack. Number 2, the performance is a bit choppy, but it's respectable for the price. Number 3, the cameras are meh. Number 4, for some reason, it's always warm around the camera, which I believe is where the CPU is located on the motherboard. Number 5, I can't get notifications to show up for Gmail, calendar events and other applications. Not sure why this is, but those notifications are really important to me and it's a bit annoying that they don't really pop up. Number 6, every time I open up Blackberry Password Keeper, it always asks me for the Hub Plus services, which I have to run as an app. Now this kind of shows that the phone doesn't allow some apps to be running in the background. And finally, number 7, the battery life. Oh yes, this is a negative. The Bluboo S8 has a built-in lithium-ion battery which has a capacity of 3450 milliamps. It's quite a big battery, just like the Blackberry Passports. The problem is there is no optimization whatsoever on the power consumption. When the phone is asleep in your pocket, it's always warm around the camera, like I mentioned just a moment ago. This means that there is power going through to the CPU and it's generating heat. Now my first day with the phone was really bad. I actually charged the battery to 100% in the night and I woke up to a very hot phone with only 39% remaining, which is abysmal. Now using a smart charger to charge this phone, it takes about 3 hours to charge because the charger thinks the phone only requires 5 volts 1 amps. And using the charger that came with the device, it takes 1.5 hours to charge. Now there is no quick charge technology on this phone, so don't really count on it, even though the CPU does support it. Luckily for me, in the settings there is an option to schedule the power on and off. Now this turns the phone on automatically when I wake up and the battery doesn't drain through the night. Another issue I have with the battery is that it doesn't have a protection circuit. Now if you leave this device charging overnight, it will mess up the battery. So don't do that. I have had instances where the phone just turns off because the battery is dead. First time it was at 38% and the second at 56%. Now since then I have recalibrated the battery and it seems to be working fine. And as far as the battery life goes, you can actually watch it go down. I'm not even joking. It doesn't last long enough for me. Just reading and editing this review on the Bluboo S8, the battery went from 53 to 27%. Alright, time for the conclusion. The Bluboo S8 is a nice phone and it definitely looks nice and performs well given the price tag, which is only £80. Not joking, £80 is a really good price. Now it does have some problems which I think Bluboo have skimped on to save money in the manufacturing process, and that's understandable. Now overall I really like it and would recommend it to anyone. My only advice is that make sure you charge it properly because the battery can get a little funny. Alright, that's it for this video. So that was my review of the Bluboo S8. If you want to buy it, check out the description. Make sure you leave any comments, and if you have any questions, let me know in the comment section below. Thank you for watching and I will see you guys again in another video.